2-2. Ground ball. Lindor waits on it. He's got it. And the ball game is over. From 0-5 to OMG. What a ride. The Mets are going to the postseason in 2024.
Hey everyone, this is Sportsman Periente, and all I can say for those who follow my videos and everything, this has been, as a Mets fan, maybe one of the greatest weeks of my life. Oh my god. So, as you heard, the final call by Gary, Keith, and Ron Darling after Monday's extraordinary win over Atlanta. I think we all needed defibrillators for that game. Oh my god. Apropos. And then to see what happened on Thursday against Milwaukee, to be down 2-0 going into the ninth inning against arguably maybe the greatest closer in baseball right now, Devin Williams, to basically have our entire lineup not do anything the whole game, and then for Lindor to get that leadoff walk, Nimmo the single down, 0-2 in the count, and Pete Alonso, who's gotten a lot of flack, I know, from Met fans all over the world, from myself, for his struggles this season, to come through with that incredible home run. What can I say? This has been just an unbelievable season. To think on May 30th, the Mets were 11 games under 500. They lost Kodai Senga for basically the whole season. Alvarez missed a lot of time due to injury. The struggles of Alonso, Lindor, Nimmo, just everything. To be in this position at this point, I really did not see this coming. And I think a lot of Met fans who have been watching, especially with what happened last season, what happened at the end of 2022, the success this season, I truly did not see coming. And I think a lot of credit has to go to David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza. He deserves so much credit for the job he's done this year, the way that this season started, how everything was going off the rails. To hold this team together and for the Mets to be in this position is just astonishing, really. And that being said, in about T-minus 6 hours, the Mets will start Game 1 of the National League Division Series against a team that has been an arch rival to us, arguably maybe our biggest rival over the last decade and a half outside of maybe Atlanta, and that is the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, according to Carlos Mendoza, a major update from yesterday, Kodai Senga will pitch Game 1. Will start Game 1 of the division series. It's not clear how many innings he'll give us, what his pitch count will be. Most likely either Tyler McGill or David Peterson will come in relief, depending on how far Kodai can go. Luis Severino has been announced as the Game 2 starter. The Phillies will counter tonight with Zach Wheeler to open the series. Suarez will pitch Game 2. We don't obviously know who will be the Game 3 and Game 4 starters. That hasn't been announced yet. But what are the keys in this series for the Mets to pull off another upset and get to the championship series? Well, the key is going to be the starting pitching. Now, I don't think it's been focused on enough, but since the start of September, I believe the Mets starters are second in the majors in team ERA. Quintana has been phenomenal over the past month and a half. I think at one point in 4 starts, he had an ERA of 0.28 through 4 starts. He was incredible the other night against Milwaukee. 6 innings, no earned runs, just dominant. We saw Sean Manaea rebound from that rough start he had a few weeks ago against Milwaukee at the end of the season. He bounced back in Game 2, even though our offense didn't do anything for about 15 innings, which nearly cost us. Manaea's been great. Severino, it didn't start off good Tuesday in Game 1 against Milwaukee, but man, did he fight back and give us a quality start when the Mets needed it, with their bullpen being absolutely torched. And if the Mets can get about 5 to 6 innings from their starters in this series against Philly, we saw the Met bullpen put up some very good numbers against Philadelphia in the 4-game series in September. Edwin Diaz, of course, had that huge two-inning save on the Sunday night game. In the finale, we saw Budo have a very good bounce back. He's recovered from a rough patch about in August. We've seen Ryan Stanek give us some quality innings. Even Reed Garrett is starting to pick up the pieces after his really rough patch after he came back from injury. So if the Met bullpen can pitch like it did against Philadelphia in September, if the Mets can really attack the zone and not give up walks, which has been their Achilles heel really throughout most of the season, even when we were doing well, the Mets are going to be in good shape if we can do that. Now, we do have to be wary of stolen bases. Milwaukee ran roughshod against us in Game 3. They stole, I think, 5 bases, and really throughout the season when we played them, they really ran. We have to keep Trey Turner off the bases because he can certainly create havoc on the base paths with stealing and creating runs. We have to keep Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber in the ballpark. We have to try and get into the Philly bullpen because really outside of maybe Sir Anthony Dominguez, the Philly bullpen, which had been very good throughout the season, has kind of hit a bit of a rough patch. We need to do well against Zach Wheeler, which we've had some struggles against him, obviously, throughout the season. But if we can steal a game in Philadelphia, that's going to be the key in this series. Because if the Mets go down 0-2, it's going to be very difficult to win 3 straight games against Philadelphia. The Mets have not done that this season. We're 6-7 against them in 2024, but we've never won 3 in a row against Philadelphia this year. And I think last year they did sweep Philadelphia at home, but it's very hard to do that. So the Mets really have to find ways to get quality at bats. They really struggled with that against Milwaukee until the 9th inning of Game 3 with getting quality at bats. We have to be patient. We can't panic. And the bottom line is the Mets have to try and create runs. If they have to steal bases like Winker did in the 9th inning of Game 3, do it. You have to be willing to bunt, maybe manufacture some runs, because runs are going to be tough to come by against Zach Wheeler, Suarez, Aaron Nola. We have to find ways to get leads and play from ahead. But the Mets just have, I don't want to say magic's a strong word, but there's something about this Met team that I think maybe older Met fans, I've been reading a little bit about the 1999 Mets in the past few months. There's a quality that this team has that team kind of had, in the sense that no matter what in any game, they fight back. Whether they win, whether they lose, they always fight back. 2022 was similar until the end of the season, but we won't get into that. But this Met team has a lot of fight. That comes from the manager. That comes from Lindor. This team will not die quietly. They will fight till the bitter end. And that quality can go a long way, especially when you have no pressure. The Mets are really... No one expected them to be in this position. They're not playing, in my view, with any pressure against them. All the pressure right now is on Philadelphia, because they're the favorites, arguably, in this series. there's also very few things I hate more than the New York Yankees, and the Philadelphia Phillies are one of those things. So the Mets better not embarrass us in this series. I expect us to at least put up a fight, which I think they definitely will do. Besides that, I think the other key, besides splitting one of the first two games in Philadelphia, is that the Met offense outside of Lindor has to be more consistent. Alonso, hopefully that home run will kind of get him going a little bit. We saw Mark Vientos have a big hit in game one. JD Martinez had a huge pinch run, two-run single in game one, and is also kind of starting to find his swing again. Winker had some quality at-bats. That big stolen base in game three, the big RBI, the 2 RBI triple in game one. The Mets have to get contributions outside of Lindor consistently in order to win this series. It cannot only be Lindor. We need everyone in the lineup to contribute. We need solid defense, which the Mets have in Bader and Tyrone Taylor patrolling the outfield. It'll be interesting to see if Luis Angel Acuna gets a lot of playing time in this series, because he had a really big series in the 4 games against Philadelphia at Citi Field in September when Lindor was still dealing with the back issue. I think the Mets have to try and get him involved at some point in the series, because I think he has a very good bat and has seen a lot of Philadelphia pitching. So it'll be interesting to see if the Mets maybe put him at second and platoon with Iglesias, or maybe do some other stuff, maybe DH Acuna and put Iglesias at second, Lindor at short, which is obviously our best defensive alignment in the infield. Or put Iglesias at third base, put Acuna at second, Lindor at short, and then go with that defensive alignment. But the other thing Carlos Mendoza has to do, and even though we did win the series against Milwaukee, I have been a little bit concerned about some of his bullpen decisions. Not so much in Game 3. Game 3, he did nothing wrong. You brought in Budo after Quintana gave you 6. He didn't get the job done, but he's one of your best relievers. He has to pitch in that game. Bringing in Diaz in the 7th inning, I wasn't crazy about, but I understood in the long run, okay, we have to hold the deficit at 2, because if we fall behind by more than that, we're not coming back. And Diaz did a phenomenal job when he did not have his ace stuff to keep us in that game until the 9th inning. That cannot be ignored with the Mets comeback in Game 3. The Mets don't come back in that game if Diaz does not hold the 4th the way he did, even though he was not pitching with his best stuff. So I think Mendoza, though, has to be careful, because he brought in Matan in Game 2 when Matan had thrown a lot of innings before that. I think he'd thrown 4 times in 5 days. I think sometimes you have to be willing to push your relievers a little bit. Mendoza did push Severino in Game 1, and he pushed Quintana for another inning in Game 3, which I loved because they were in control at that point. I think he has to be a little bit more willing to do that with his relievers, because throwing someone 4 times in 5 days, no matter how good they are, they're not going to be at 100%. We saw Matan in Game 2. He clearly, his stuff was there, but it wasn't being located as well, because after that kind of time period, you're exhausted. Your pitches won't go always where you want them to be because you're tired, or your arm slot isn't what it was because you're, trying to ramp it up after X amount of pitches. So I think Mendoza, if someone's going good, whether it's Stanek, Diaz, Budo, Garrett, etc., if they're going well, you have to push them, because you just can't run relievers out there 2-3 days in a row, because then their stuff will not be what it was 48 hours before that, 24 hours before that. So Mendoza needs to be better with that for the Mets to win this series. As far as who I predict will win, I don't think any more needs to be said. You can tell based off the pictures behind me that I'm a Met fan. And the Mets have done well against Philadelphia this year. They've won 6 games against them. They took 3 out of 4 at Citi Field 2 weeks ago. They really should have taken 2 out of 3 in Philadelphia a few weeks ago had not been for some poor situational hitting and other things, the Mets really should have won that series. So I'm predicting the Mets will win this series. I think it will go the full distance, 5 games, because the Phillies are absolutely a threat. They won the pennant 2 years ago. They came within a game of going back to the World Series last year. And when you have Trey Turner, Schwarber, Harper, Castellanos, Alec Boehm, etc., it's very tough to hold that lineup to 1 or 2 runs per game. It's very tough. I think the Mets, again, if the Mets starters can go deep and take some pressure off the bullpen, I think the Mets, based on how their bullpen did against Philadelphia this year, can make life difficult for them. And I think Alonso, hopefully now coming out of that real rut he was in with that home run, I think the Mets can continue to shock the world. And I believe the Mets are going to beat Philadelphia in their franchise history, by the way, fun fact. Since the division series started, I believe, in 1995, the Mets have played 4 division series in their history. They have never lost a National League Division Series. And I believe that trend will continue as the Mets take the next step, hopefully, towards the pennant. So that's my little take on the National League Division Series with the Mets. Let's go Mets, OMG. Please continue to subscribe to my channel. And may the odds be ever in our favor.